It is literally the Wild West. It is an absolutely appalling situation.
How can they say that you're qualified to do these treatments after such a short spell?
Social media is packed with aesthetic practitioners promoting their businesses. And more companies are offering training courses teaching students how to perform procedures like Botox and filler. But the area is almost completely unregulated.
Completely unacceptable practice.
Does unregulated mean unsafe?
The idea that any one of us, wholly unregulated and without any medical expertise whatsoever, can inject people with foreign substances is shocking, to say the least.
We need proper regulation, appropriate regulation. I'm not saying that we should regulate the whole industry out of existence, because there's a lot of good people out there.
A parliamentary inquiry into the non-surgical cosmetic treatment industry is due to report soon. The group feels that the only solution is for the government to intervene.
Many years ago, I predicted that regulations and qualification would come into effect for non-medics, and here we are today. 13 years on, it's going to take at least 17 years before we see qualification and regulations in this industry. So if you are a non-medic, watch this video. Let's go back in time to where it all began. In 2009, an aesthetic practitioner called Maxine McCarthy trained in aesthetics. So this is where it all started. 2015, it was just a massive boom. Beauty therapists, non-medics, everyone wanted to train in aesthetics, and it all started here. So King Street was the start of the massive non-medic revolution. We started doing things like trademark lips. We got insurance for non-medics to use hyalays. We introduced complications courses. We started doing cannula workshops. It was really starting to change. Gone with the days of like half-a-day courses. When I trained in 2008, the training was it was shocking. But here we are today, 2022, 2023, and regulations are coming. So what really changed for Cosmetic Couture was when I decided to take my students to cadaver dissection in Newcastle. It was a course that I put together so that non-medics could understand a little bit more about A&P, complications. I was really wanting to improve the standards. I felt that non-medics didn't have the right training, they needed that little bit more. But what I didn't realise was when I took the students to do this course, what was going to come next. So up until about 2016, it was so hard for non-medics. I personally got lots of online abuse. I was constantly being reported, to HMRC, to MHRA, anybody could report me on, they were doing it. But now things have changed, so we've come on a long way since then. Non-medics are included in the industry, but they still get a little bit of stick, but not as much as we did back then.
Is it morally right for you to train beauticians when there's no regulatory body controlling what you do, or in fact, at the end of the day, what they do when they're trained by you? Morally. It's about money, isn't it?
No.
Come on.
It's not about money. A dental nurse, although she's a healthcare professional, now they're doing treatments. Physiotherapists, podiatrists who deal with the foot. So why are they going to be good at the face? Just because you're a medical professional doesn't mean you're going to be fantastic at that job. I want there to be regulations. I want there to be a mandatory body. I want people to be answerable.
Why don't you stop doing your business until that happens?
Because I'm doing a good job on what I'm doing.
That kind of surprised me today, to be honest. You can't fail to be impressed by what Maxine showed us at Cosmetic Couture. They're one of the best training centres in the UK. She also says there's no regulation, and there is, at this point, no governing body. And that's the point of this whole story.
Non-medics were left out there in the aesthetic industry, and it was an absolute minefield with no help, limited resources. A lot of it was self-taught. There was nobody to help non-medics, but now things have changed. Training has changed. It is a lot better than years ago, but it still needs to be to a higher standard. I really welcome the changes. Regulated qualifications, and let's raise them standards. Non-medics are included in this industry, and it's actually printed and reported in the HE England end of report, where Cosmetic Couture has released their statement regarding our training company, and obviously that we can actually train. Also, what makes Cosmetic Couture different is my own personal experience in the whole aesthetic industry, how I actually gained entry into it, and the minefield of what actually goes on in this industry. If I'm talking honestly, it used to be quite a grey area. Beauty therapists were basically used for money to get these courses, you know, to train with the medical companies, and then they were then tried to be prevented from doing these treatments. So I can talk from my own personal experience that I actually care about the therapists. I understand what some of them have actually been through. You know, we're all in this industry together now. We were invited into it by medics. So now I think it's time that the barriers should be dropped and that we should all basically work together. And I will support and obviously fight the cause all the way through for as long as it takes for beauty therapists to be accepted in the industry. The aesthetic industry is an absolute minefield, with a lot of practitioners being self-taught. In the earlier days of aesthetic practitioners doing treatments, the training was limited, half-a-day courses, and even now it still goes on. Those that are delivering courses are not even experienced enough to deliver courses themselves. So it's not just about doing the treatment, it's about the complications as well. The Sun did a well-known article called "We've Had Our Fill," and it highlighted the dangers of doing aesthetic treatments. As the training in the earlier years was of a very low standard, we've had to think of ways to improve training for non-medics, from complication courses to first aid anaphylaxis to the use of hyaluronidase, and it all started at Cosmetic Couture.
Fillers can be injected by healthcare professionals like doctors, dentists and nurses, but they can also be administered by those not subject to regulation, like beauty therapists. While there are registers for practitioners, they are voluntary and not compulsory. Maxine runs this training provider in Manchester. She says students leave with the appropriate knowledge and skill required for injecting fillers.
We've wanted standards to be raised, also to work alongside the framework that was released by the JCCP, but they've actually pulled away from beauty therapists. So where does that leave the beauty industry? I do think that there needs to be regulations. The councils need to do inspections of premises and training providers also. So, you know, the industry, I'd say at the moment, is at crisis point. So from the first non-medic delivering aesthetic treatments in 2008, it took 5 years for Health Education England to launch the first look into the industry. This was to see who was doing treatments, why non-medics were in the industry, and basically the outcome was they would develop a framework based on level 4 to 7. This was launched by ᴊᴏဋᴜ, and it was a look into the industry to see who was doing aesthetic treatments. And the main thing was, medics didn't want non-medics to be doing treatments, but the outcome was they were included.
It's the day Sir Bruce has published a scathing review of the regulation of the entire cosmetic industry.
I think it's absolutely reprehensible that this stuff is available without any checks or balances for people to inject into themselves.
So the great news was non-medics were included in the industry. So what happened next? Stakeholders like myself who were involved in the aesthetic industry, we contributed information towards this report. They were looking at a framework, level 4 to 7, that would include beauty therapists. But it was no longer beauty therapists. There were fast-track courses where non-medics had completed courses after a few days and they were out there injecting the public. Looking back over the last decade, it is amazing to see how much the industry has changed and how much I've been part of in the aesthetic world. In the last decade, I have created the first pathway into aesthetics, 2012. I was the first to gain insurance for non-medics to use hyaluronidase. I introduced complication courses to non-medics as no one else would. I trademarked styles of lips and built a business model that others followed. And I'm very proud to have created a non-profit charity. I'm proud to be a trustee of the charity and that it supports both medics and non-medics as they move into the aesthetics world. As I said, the industry has changed massively. From the days of bullying online to cadaver dissection and to the JCCP being formed. I had to sit through interviews with Kyle Files, Piers Morgan, ITV, Channel 5, defending non-medics in an industry, advocating for regulations and standardised training. There was great excitement when Health Education England was formed in 2016. The discussion of regulated level 4 to 7 was had then, but nothing ever finalised. But now here we are today in 2022 and positive things are happening. It won't be finalised till about 2025. That makes it over 17 years since the first non-medic went into aesthetics. This industry has been described as the Wild West, and at times it is. But as I have always said, non-medics are part of this industry and we always will be. So let's work together to standardise and regulate and get rid of all of those that give us a bad name. I for one will welcome these qualifications, and I remember predicting in 2009 this would happen. So when regulations do come in, don't be frightened. Companies like us will help you along the way. Let's get ready, let's get prepared for when regulations do come. Non-medics are included in this industry, you're not excluded. Let's get ready, we're here to stay. Non-medics are not excluded from this industry.